Once upon a time, your friendly neighborhood Menzoid worked in a restaurant and toiled for a trade magazine that covered the restaurant business. And oh, what a business it is, folks. Food service is both capital intensive and labor intensive. And much like farming, it's a trade in which so many variables can conspire against the owner, such as, the star chef quitting on a whim or getting slammed by an unfair review in the local newspaper. The list goes on. That's why about 80% of new restaurants will actually fail in the first 3 years alone. So you really have to feel bad for Ottawa area restaurateur Dan Dunbar, who owns Kelly's Landing. Here's the backstory. Last month, Candice Pouliot visited Kelly's Landing along with her infant daughter and her grandmother. As infants are wont to do, the child eventually made a deposit in her diaper and required changing. Now here's where things get sticky, or should that be stinky. Pouliot asked the hostess if she could use a table, as in a table used for eating food, to change the kid's diaper, as there were no baby change tables in the ladies' room. The hostess, for whatever reason, said yes. Well, thank God for little miracles. At least Pouliot's granny didn't need a diaper change too.
Come back here, you hairy little varmint! Get your picking paws off of my pickled paw!
In any event, a few minutes later, Dunbar walked into the restaurant. He was mortified. According to a report in the Ottawa Sun, Dunbar approached Pouliot and asked, "Do you know this is a restaurant?" And he then walked away. Well, cue the outrage, folks. Pouliot promptly left the restaurant. She did not wait for nor pay for the family's meals, even though Dunbar never actually prevented her from going through with the diaper change. Apparently, Dunbar's question was simply too egregious for her to bear. And of course, this being 2015, the story doesn't end there. Oh no. For now comes a social media lynching. A few days later, Pouliot posted a review on the Kelly's Landing Facebook page. And this is what she asked. In a society where we value accessibility for all patrons, why are we turning away from infant and children's rights to occupy public spaces? Maybe I can answer that question. Perhaps it's less about discrimination and more about public spaces such as Kelly's Landing lacking the necessary infrastructure to accommodate change tables. It's a small place after all. Now at this juncture, I must ponder how the millions and millions of mothers of yesteryear were able to cope with changing diapers without accessibility to ping-pong table-sized changing platforms. Funny that. But that was then, and this is now. Indeed, woe to any entrepreneur these days that dares to offend that humorless harpy known as the mummy blogger. In 2015, the old chestnut, I think, therefore I am, has been replaced with, I exist, therefore I am offended. You see, Pouliot was just getting started. After posting her less than favorable review of Kelly's Landing, she started an online petition demanding the provincial government pass a law that would make it mandatory for all public businesses to have an infant change table and or area. And if a restaurant is too small to accommodate a diaper changing area, Pouliot apparently believes it's okay to carry out such a duty on a dining room table. You see, Mr. Restaurateur, the onus is on you to accommodate parents, not for parents to make alternative arrangements like the mums and dads of yesteryear used to do. Pouliot's Change.org petition has about 250 signatures thus far. No word yet if she plans to file a complaint with the Ontario Human Rights Commission. Oh, and speaking of which, the diaper drama brings to mind the Gator Teds affair, in which a patron demanded he should be allowed to smoke his medical marijuana on the Burlington restaurant's premises, even though such an accommodation would mean the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario would have to revoke the restaurant's liquor license, and thus Gator Teds would go bankrupt. Sanity prevailed when an Ontario Human Rights Tribunal eventually rejected the complaint, but not before 8 years of legal wrangling and an $80,000 lawyer's bill that Gator Ted had to swallow. And it's precisely this issue of accommodation versus the law of the land that has Dan Dunbar in a catch-22 situation. For example, had a public health inspector walked into Kelly's Landing and observed a feces-loaded diaper being changed on a dining room table, Dunbar would have been red-carded. Alas, Candace Pouliot might not be cognizant of this, but a restaurant has to pay very strict attention to that which is known as hygiene. To spell it out in language Pouliot hopefully comprehends, I defer to that great philosopher king, Tony Soprano.
You don't shit where you eat, and you really don't shit where I eat.
For TheRebel.Media, I'm David the Menzoid Menzies.